Other thing is, when clients go to a solicitor practice, they have to discuss the fees first. That's part of their, client-solicitor agreement. So in the client care letter, the solicitor should set out what his charging rate is, or if not, whether he's going to agree a fixed fee and for what sort of work. That has to be detailed orally, as well as it has to be followed up by a written letter, and both parties have to, the clients have to sign the letter, and the solicitor will have signed the client care letter as well. So the problem there is, these safeguards are there, but because the asylum, because the state is, the British state wants to deny any sort of rights to asylum seekers, and at any cost they want to really refuse anyone and everyone. That's the current approach of the Tory government, and that has been the case even under Labour. Anyway, I'm not making a political statement here. So they don't really separate the refugees and asylum seekers from the migrants, and so they see them all of them as one, and they want to refuse as many asylum claims as possible in order to meet their targets and statistics. So because of that, there is the instilled fear in asylum seekers that if he complain against a lawyer, whether he can do something against them, and that will jeopardize their claims. Because of that fear, they don't really complain to the Solicitors Regulation Authority or Bar Council or OIC. But some clients have complained, but then sadly what we have is a capitalist system. It really doesn't trust the asylum seeker, it really mostly trusts solicitors and the lawyers. So all they get is compensation of £500 to £700 for standard of advice they have received. And often these so-called corrupt lawyers, they don't take the money in check or anything, so it's difficult for the asylum seeker to prove that they have given £17,000 or £20,000 to that particular lawyer. So in the absence of evidence, it's very difficult for the regulatory body to do justice for these sad failed asylum seekers. So these are the problems, but community and media will have to, Jayavalan has been involved in that, and so many journalists and media organizations have been involved in educating asylum seekers and giving them support. So that's one of the things that we want to discuss as part of the way forward of this session. Any other questions?
There are refugees of great skills which can be accessed to the United Kingdom. Those people are not considered.
But Theresa May is not understanding that.
She doesn't understand anything.
Yeah. She doesn't even call the European migrants.
You're absolutely right. Refugees are human. They also have dreams, they also have skills, knowledge, aspirations, and they want to contribute.
And they are not recognizing their country.
The majority of the Sri Lankan asylum seekers, those who came from 80 until now, have been integrated and contributing. But hearing this one, because I was involved in 1985 till such time on asylum applications and advising and then policy making, because I'm part of the Home Office Integration Forum. It's sad to see that we talk about general themes and stuff, but then within our community that education is important, awareness is important, and then personal responsibility of the asylum seeker is also important. We can't simply blame the lawyers and stuff because they don't come to the case until the following morning the case, and only on the evening they appear. So where do they have the planned relationship to build the case? And they totally depends on the lawyers to do. And half the lawyers are not qualified because they think they came as refugees, so therefore they have the experience of helping the others. So it's a very difficult theme. But now there are institutions which regulate the lawyers, as they explained. But then within the community there are a huge gap. That gap has to be taken by the community organization, which they don't have the capacity to do that because they are not trained or qualified to do that.
Yeah.
I want to make a statement. I'm coming from Refugee Rights Campaign. We started a campaign already to to explain about the refugee rights and what we need to put forward our demands and to fight for our rights. Because no any other organization would give enough time for the refugees or explain the situations or anything. So we as refugees, we march together to fight back our rights. We put two demands. We need our work right, and it's another one. The applications, it's not really see on a proper way. They refuse that. So we need to reconsider the applications and to find our grant refugees as a refugee, grant our visas. So we start explaining our rights and any confusions with the refugees, then they can come along and talk to me, and we have we build up a refugee rights campaign, and they can talk to us and we can explain it.
That's good.
So I have a question too. So just under what items do we have exhaustion of remedies in a refugee's case?
Sorry.
Exhaustion of remedies, like in legal terms, like if you, under what circumstances he or she will be refused for further appeal. Do we have a clear line?
Well, there's a clear appeal process in that if somebody claims asylum from the Home Office and the Home Office don't accept that they're a refugee, they refuse the claim, for the most part people are then able to appeal that in country. A small number of cases they might not be able to. For the most part you appeal that to what's called the first tier tribunal. If you lose at that level, you can try and challenge it in the upper tier tribunal, but it gets harder at each stage that you go up. It gets tougher because the grounds on which you can bring a challenge become more stringent. And of course you can go all the way up to the Supreme Court, and then at the moment to the European Court on Human Rights, on that. But what a lot of people do, if they're not successful through the appeals process, and most cases of course don't go to the Supreme Court, only cases which will have very significant wider application to a wider range of applicants would have their cases heard in the Supreme Court. So if somebody isn't successful through the appeals process, they can submit what's called a fresh claim for asylum, which means that they can submit evidence that wasn't available to them at the beginning when they first claimed, but has since become available, that might have changed the mind of the first judge that looked at their case. And then again that goes back to the Home Office, and then they could potentially have an appeal right arising out of that as well. But it's not easy, of course, it's difficult.
My question about the country guidelines report. Normally every year the government produces the country guidelines and the panel of expertise are producing those reports. But every year only it will produce. But after the production of those reports, all the cases mostly consider under the country guidance. But after the last country guidance, in the December, they revealed that UN, they said still the human rights violations continues in Sri Lanka, still the BTA is still there, there is no stop that one. So still the Tamils have been arrested and tortured under that act. So if it comes in every 1 year, so in the meantime, whatever happened during those 1 year time, how does it going to affect, or how is it considered in the visa process? And also, is there any procedures to appeal or giving our ideas on the guidance, country guidance? Please.
I mean, for the most part, whatever was the most recent report or country guidance case in court, such as the GJ one, that remains law or guidance until there's an update. So for now, for example, the current country guidance case is one that dates back to 2013. And in some cases, the Home Office seek to argue in front of the courts that there's been a change of circumstances, particularly since the elections last year, that mean that the situation isn't as bad in Sri Lanka now for some people as it was maybe when that case came out in 2013. But the important thing to remember is that that is still the law. That's still the right test to apply until there is something further than that that really can satisfy the courts that there's been a change in circumstances. But of course, if there's something that's specific to a case that's come out since the most recent guidance, then it is helpful to have that evidence submitted as well.
And Ravichandran, the decision makers and the judges will have to consider the situation as it prevails on the day of the decision making or a day of the appeal hearing. So if you have any evidence, that shows things have deteriorated since the publication of the OGM, you can take that evidence to the appeals and present that to the judge. And from that, I would also like to put another question. Despite the fact that the GJ remains the guidance case in Sri Lanka, Home Office has been writing to refugees who have already established that they are refugees, that their refugee status should be withdrawn because there has been a significant and durable change. Those letters have started arriving about 2-3 weeks ago. And have you seen any of those letters, and do you have any views?
I haven't dealt with any cases, but I know that is something that's starting to happen. But like I said earlier, I think that it's a little bit of a schizophrenic approach, because at the same time the Home Office is still producing country of origin information reports that really clearly set out that there is still a risk to a considerable number of people, and that in fact in some circumstances the risk to people going back from abroad could be arguably worse now than it was before. So I think the important thing to bear in mind, although maybe you've dealt with these cases more specifically than I have, but the important thing to remember is that the onus is on the Home Office to prove that that person would be safe going back. Whereas normally when someone claims asylum, it's for them to prove their case. Not absolutely, they don't have to prove it to a really high standard, but they have to show that there's a reasonable likelihood that they will be in danger if they go back home. Whereas if they've already got that refugee status, they've proved that, it's then for the Home Office to prove that they would be safe going back. And it's important that to bear in mind that the Home Office will have to make a reference to the UNHCR on each case to look at each individual case. You wonder, given how much of a backlog there is in the Home Office anyway, Home Office decision making, why on earth they are beginning to go down that road now, when it's quite clear that there are still problems in Sri Lanka specifically. But maybe you've got more.
Yeah, it's about, my belief is that it's because the migration targets, he doesn't want to give indefinite leave to remain to refugees, and thereby she would be able to bring down the number of successful ILR cases, and thereby she would be able to show to the UKIP leader, whoever that is now, that I have been trying to achieve this net migration target and trying to bring it under control. I think that's the political aim.
I have my own doubts about this Session4 applicable to those Sri Lankan authorities. The reason is this could be a rumor, and I think this is one area of concern. Probably if someone was granted refugee status and they make an application for ILR, if they committed any crime, this under the rule, they will not be eligible for ILR. So I haven't seen the document.
No, I have got it here.
You have?
Yes, I mean, this one is not relating to any criminality.
Okay.
It's the letter says that, as you know, it says that there has been a significant change in the Sri Lankan situation, and and also they are making a very fine legal point there, that you were granted asylum under the old country guidance called LP. And therefore, you have to show now why you continue to qualify as a refugee under GJ. Yeah, I can. Yeah, under GJ. So that they are making partially justifiable legal argument there. So that's the basis on which they are, trying to create a situation where they can review all these cases.
that makes it, that is something that complicates it even further. Not only are you looking again at opening up an asylum claim that's already been determined once, but of course, in the meantime, people have established themselves here. They will have potentially brought their family over under the refugee family reunion policies, or have started families here in the UK and will have formed significant private life ties to the UK. And then obviously that's something that would have to be reopened as well. It's not going to be a straightforward process if that's the approach, if that's the way that the Home Office are going to try and cut down.
It costs a lot of money to the taxpayer actually.
Yeah.
You know, spending time and energy on making these decisions and then, you know, sending them through the appeal process will cost the taxpayer millions of pounds. But Teresa is not worried about that. She wants to spend as much as possible and bring the numbers down. That's the only aim.
I think I just had one thing on the end of that. That somebody, when you're granted refugee status in the UK, it's normally for 5 years, and at the end of that, then you can extend it and apply for indefinite leave to remain. And I think it's often at the end of this 5-year period when someone applies for indefinite leave to remain that they're then being sent these letters in response. But what's important to remember is that you're not, if you're granted refugee status, you're not granted refugee status only for 5 years. It's just the document is for 5 years. Refugee status is indefinite. So even at the end of that period, if somebody applies for indefinite leave to remain and there's a mangled, long drawn out process, they're still a refugee while that process is continuing. That's important to bear in mind.
Is it not a discouragement of, is it not a policy of discouragement that, even those people who have received the refugee status cannot continue? So it's no point in going to UK.
Yeah. Every act is an act of deterrence. Don't come here. That's the message you want to say.
It was a clear political statement that United Kingdom is not a soft touch. So therefore, all the asylum seekers wants to remain in the region rather than traveling all the way to UK.
Say some background about the DJ.
I think Keisha has set it out.
You going to say?
Is it?
Sorry? Yeah.
You going to
I mean, the DJ didn't say anything different from a common sense point of view. But legally, you know, they have set out a criteria or a checklist. So that has changed from the previous case. So that's what Keisha has gone through, the stop list, being a journalist, being someone who has given evidence to the LLRP or who has given evidence to the International Tribunal fact-finding.
Someone that's been involved in what would be seen as a destabilising.
And even in the letter that I have mentioned, the Home Office is really misinterpreting GJ. They are saying that GJ didn't accept that low-level LGBT members or low-level supporters are refugees, but GJ didn't say that, you know. And GJ didn't say that there has been a significant change in Sri Lanka. In fact, they found that there has not been a significant change since the end of the war. The LP country guidance was decided in 2007. Then there was another country guidance called TK in 2009, right after the end of war. Then GJ was decided in 2013. Still, GJ found that there has not been a significant change in the human rights situation in Sri Lanka for Tamils after the end of war. But I don't know where the Home Office is getting their evidence from.
And one significant change they are saying is the current recent change of government and the journalist issuing related to journalists. Many of the most of the journalists are pardoned and also but PG is still both, but still what they are saying is the human rights situation in Sri Lanka is improved, even if you look at COI report.
Nobody denies that human rights situation in Sri Lanka has improved since the end of war.
That is my issue, because we shouldn't give kind of force, to those people who are to claim asylum in this country. We shouldn't give false hope to those people who, when most of the solicitors are giving false hope to those people who don't have any merits.
Yeah, I don't know whether most of the solicitors, but
That is clients.
and I mean, there are bad apples in every profession. There are complaints about GPs, there are complaints about lawyers. I'm not defending them.
But in our
But,
community, it's more
I
bad.
am directly because I belong to them.
More bad.
I mean, it depends on who you, in this capitalist system, it depends on who you get. If you get a decent, competent lawyer, then you
No, what I'm saying is that you have to look at the current political climate here as well as political climate in Sri Lanka. Both. It's a combination.
But the dilemma is, what do you do with the people who are already here? The purpose of this conference is not to encourage those who are fleeing in Sri Lanka, come to the UK and claim asylum. UK is going to deal with your claims very fairly and you're going to get status. That's not what we are saying. But people who are already here, who have got refugee status.
But it has an indirect effect at first. People who get it.
Yeah, I mean, you are speaking for Theresa May then.
No.
You are carrying her brief.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
There's another factor as well. There are so many people visiting Sri Lanka from all over
They
the
are
world.
British citizens. This is another
Not
point.
only the British citizens. There are people who go without.
Nobody with refugee status can go
No,
to Sri Lanka.
I'm not talking about the refugee status. What I'm trying to say is there are people visiting there, and even the people, those who are deported, still there, alive. Nothing happens. So that's also backfires on us, on the cases when you say that there's a real threat or there's a real torture or disappearance. They have been monitored, and still there are people.
I think it really depends who you are. I think that's the issue, is that it's a really individualised thing, and that there isn't a single approach that can be taken. Each case has to be looked at on its own facts. Some people are sent back and are okay. Others, there are very clear reports, are not okay and have been abducted and tortured and even killed since they have been forcibly returned. So I think it depends on a case by case basis. The difficulty is proving that to the Home Office.
In the final 5 or so minutes that we have, I've been asked by the organisers to discuss the way forward. What are the things that the asylum seekers can do individually, and what are the things that can be done by the community collectively. So first of all, individually, we can address some of the issues like how important it is to get quality representation and to present quality evidence to the Home Office. And if you can wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean it's crucial, it's key, because these sorts of cases, for the most part, centre on credibility. Not entirely, because of course there are guidelines about who would be at risk and who wouldn't be. But if you're saying you fit within the guidelines of the country guidance case about who would be at risk, then it comes down to whether or not you're going to be believed. So that as much evidence as you can get that corroborates your account is what you need to get, and that includes a really detailed witness statement. Solicitors should be putting together detailed witness statements, and they need to be read through very carefully, because it often happens that somebody gets to court and in front of a judge says something that is different to what's written in their witness statement, and when that's pointed out to them, they say, oh well, I haven't read that properly, and that's a problem, because you sign it and say that everything you've written in it is true. So it's really important that people know what's written in the witness statements, and that they give as much detail as possible. One thing that I think is a concern for people sometimes is that people who have been quite heavily involved with the LTT are sometimes afraid to say that as well, because they're afraid of being excluded from refugee protection because of their involvement with what was prescribed, labelled as a terrorist organisation. And I think that sometimes there's a risk that people are persuaded by members of their community to downplay their involvement or to not mention certain things. And I think that takes people into dangerous territory sometimes as well, because it could be quite damaging to somebody's claim not to put out the full facts of the concerns that they have. At the moment, if you're found to have had a real direct connection with